Good morning for those who are gathering. Oh, there's that puppy boy. There's that puppy boy. Good morning. As usual, we're just getting started. Hello, hello. Good morning, good morning. Yep, there's the sun. Not here all morning until just the second when we start the camera. Isn't that amazing? I'm already chasing the sun. I was looking for a new location, but I didn't think I'd need it. Where's the Casper boy? Where's the Casper boy? You gonna have some coffee with me? Yeah. Well, that didn't work. It was cloudy and nice. Good morning, good morning. We got Palm Springs in the house. We got Hollywood in the house. We got New Hampshire in the house. Hi, hi, hi. About 30 seconds to go while we're getting ready here. We got Luce in the house. That's Luce would be Light. Light is in the house. Good morning, good morning. New Hampshire in the house. Good job, everybody, with sharing and getting the word out. We're sure glad to have you with us here this morning. And it looks to me like we're at 8:30. So good morning, my beloveds. Welcome to Coffee with Casper. Casper, come on back up here and say hi. Come here. Attaboy. There he is. There's the Casper. 7 months old, just yesterday. He's getting bigger all the time. Oh, you're a handsome boy. You know, the thing about Casper, and the reason we were inspired by this idea, is I love the idea that he thinks, okay, you got to get down now, little boy. Oh, little boy. He thinks that this is the best day ever, no matter what day it is. This is the best day ever. So we're glad to have you in. A couple of things to remind you that if you go on to Facebook, there's Pasadena in the house. If you go on to Facebook, if you get there before 8:28, I'm not there, and then I try not to chat too much before we get going right at 8:30. So it's a few seconds after 8:30 now, and we're in the game. 8:31 actually. So today, have you noticed that in this quarantine thing that not everybody was emotionally equipped to have this much time in a dramatic change of social behavior? And what we can see based on the behavior of egos would be, the best way to talk about egos is to name them what they are. They're your small self, you know, the part of us that can become reactive, that can move immediately from fear to flight, the part of us that leaves out our mind, that leaves out our capacity to make choices. There's Burbank in the house. Nice to see you all. So, you know, what we would ask in the light of the rioting in the last few days and the horrible behavior by law enforcement people that would create such incredible separation between races and people. This is all happening because of the great awareness that is being born in human consciousness at the moment. That awareness is something that we've all been seeing, that we've all heard reference to. You hear it on secular radio, you hear it on secular television, you hear it in advertisements, you hear it all over. That the thing that is, Canada is in the house. We'd like to have Canada in the house. Welcome, welcome. That the reality is that there is only one life. That life is everywhere present and equally distributed. And through that reality, everyone is interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent. I had an inspiration. I bought yesterday a papaya from Hawaii, and we talk about interconnected and interrelated. He said, well, I bought a papaya from Hawaii. But how many people are involved? How many souls are involved between the farmer, between the actual people who do the sowing and the planting and the tractor running and the fertilizing and all of that stuff, and then the pickers, and then the truckers that move it from the ranch to from the farm to eventually to an airport, to pilots and people at the airport, and hundreds of souls involved in loading those planes and getting them off to their destinations all around the world. And then they arrive, and wherever their destination is, they need to be unpacked and distributed again and retrucked, and then the grocer deals with them and he shelves them. And so he or she, obviously, so what we see is in a single papaya that we might have the privilege of enjoying, in a single papaya, many, many, many souls were involved. And in order for you to get that, hey, welcome from Colorado, in order for you to get that papaya, millions of souls, hundreds of souls were involved in any particular item that you get at the grocery store, in anything that you're using at your house, everything from, there's Las Vegas is in the house. Nice to see everybody. We're glad you're here. And so what we realize is that everything is interconnected, interrelated, and independent. And if we don't know that, we're going to come from a sense of separation, a sense of ego, a sense of self-protection, and therefore a sense of fear or flight, and a sense of fear or fight, and that's what's popping up in the world all over. So I wanted to talk today about a couple of things. First of all, we recognize that in order to separate ourselves from what the race is doing, and we don't mean everybody in the race, we know there is an enlightened humanity being realized on the planet. And it's happening one soul at a time. When we realize that we're directly connected to the infinite, and therefore, since everyone is directly connected to the infinite, we're interconnected and interrelated and indeed interdependent. The wonderful poem about if a clod is lost in Europe, then I am the lesser. Everything is connected and interrelated. And so I wanted to talk about something that's happened in the last few years, and it's something that we can look at in our own lives and decide how we want to do it. You know, when I was young, I was raised in an environment where pretty regularly we recited the Pledge of Allegiance. Certainly we were called to the values in the Declaration of Independence in the United States. And what we know is that those words and those documents have sacred meaning. And what has happened in the last few years is that we have said, well, hey, Seer, nice to see some folks that I haven't seen for a while. Good to be with you. What we know is that what happened in the last few years is we began to say, well, these words of wisdom, so I'm just going to share a couple of them, which we all know. They're all part of the fiber of our being. And for those in Canada, I know it's the same values. So it may not be the same documents, but it's the same values. And so in the Pledge of Allegiance is we pledge an allegiance to a republic and for the ideas for which it stands for, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God. That this nation was founded in the belief that there is a God. Because if you go immediately from the Pledge of Allegiance and you go into the Declaration of Independence, what is that line? We hold these truths to be self-evident. That all men, so let's call it humans, that all humans are created equal. That they are endowed by their Creator. Again, this one life, this one source, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, rights from which they cannot be separated. And among these are life, liberty. And so what we know, that's the first time that ever happened. Call came in during Coffee with Casper. What has happened is that we looked at those words and those statements and those values, And then we have said, well, we're not living up to them. We're not living up to them. But a principle is a principle. Remember, the principle of electricity, as we talked about a little last week, existed well before Ben Franklin ever put a key on a kite and saw the charge of electricity. Electricity was dancing in the heavens since the dawn of time. And yet we didn't know how to use it or what to do with it, but it was there. And then we learned about the principle, and then eventually we learned how to use the principle. So a principle is whole and complete and perfect. It doesn't matter what we're doing with the principle itself is whole, complete, and perfect. So if you look at those ideas, not the history of what we've been able to do with them, but what the words mean in principle, we recognize that unalienable rights from which you cannot be separated, belong to you as part of the human family. They are your gift from God directly to you. Unalienable rights from which you cannot be separated. Among them, life, liberty, and your right to pursue happiness. In the Pledge of Allegiance, it says liberty and justice for all. Not liberty and justice for all who agree with me, not liberty and justice who are all of the same color as I am, not liberty and justice who all have the same ways of being that I have, but liberty and justice for all. And these were the ideas when I was young, that I was raised with every day. And nobody in my teaching world, and those who were teachers and influences to me, whether they be teachers, whether they were family, whether they were friends, whether they're my parents' friends, nobody ever separated or used discrimination or racism or separation by means of race, color, creed, or ways of being. None of that was ever discussed with me. So as a young boy, taking in these ideas, I saw them as profound and belonging to all people. Certain inalienable rights from your Creator, directly from the Creator, given to me and given to you and given to everybody, totally and completely equally. Because we know that everyone is interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent. And so that need to honor the humanness, the gift of the soul to every human with whom we encounter, with whom we have interaction, with whom we relate, this is essential. Because without that, we fall into this egotistic fear and separation and get mine first, and basically narcissistic behavior, which doesn't include the whole. And so when we talk about these ideas to which we are dedicated, we're not talking about what we have done with them. We're talking about what the principle is. And each of us has the right to move ourselves into the principle in a way that causes us to honor every living soul, to honor them regardless of race, creed, color, nationality, ways of being, religion. There's no separation. God, the principle of God, the principle of birthing creation into itself. I think we've got Africa in the picture here watching. Welcome, welcome. These belong to everybody. But we are all given another gift, and this is the gift of freedom. And the gift of freedom may not be the same in country to country and world to world, but in God, it's the same. And in God, that gift of freedom is our capacity to make our own choices, to choose how we would be. For example, Nelson Mandela, who was imprisoned wrongly for all of those years, made a decision when he was in prison not to hate. Even though hate was the operating principle that put him in that situation, hate and racism and separation, he made a decision not to hate. And that decision caused him to free a nation and to rise up and become one of the greatest leaders in the history of the world. That decision not to hate. Now we go back to Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was a soul who simply made a decision to be nonviolent. And in that decision to be nonviolent, he became a transformer in the world. He freed a nation and defeated the greatest empire that had ever been with love and nonviolence, which is non-separation. One power belonging to all people equally. And each of us has a right to see through the mist and to make a decision to live in a way that honors the life of all souls around us all the time. Now, I made a decision some 25 years ago when I was exposed to the work of Gandhi through Arun Gandhi, who is still alive and I'm in touch with on occasion. This great soul still doing the great work of his grandfather. Again, so when we make a decision to be nonviolent, there is a power that moves in us and through us and as us that can begin to actually function as divine protection and begin to function as that which attracts to us harmony and greater good. But in order to do that, we need to fall away, get away from our egotistic mind and our separation mind and our get mine first mind. I'll give you a very typical kind of consumer way that this showed up in my life this week. I have a car which has tires, and the tires are expensive on that particular car, and I needed to buy a new tire. At the same time, another tire on the car began a small leak. Well, my belief was that I had already bought 3 tires from this dealer, which gives me a certificate for any damage to the tire so that you don't have to buy a new tire. They'll replace it. It's basically an insurance policy. And somehow they came up with an argument to me that said, oh no, this was the 4th tire, but it wasn't, the other tire that's bad was not one that you bought. Well, that was impossible. There's only 4 tires on the car. The other one is one of those mini tires that's in the trunk. So there's only 4 tires. If I bought 4 tires, that one had to be one that I bought. Well, somehow, and whatever they had in their computer and whatever they said, they were arguing that I was going to have to buy a 2nd tire as opposed to get the free replacement. Something within me knew that that was not right, that that was wrong. And I began to get, I felt that anger come up. That's that ego self, that separation come up. And it wanted to tell me to get angry and get righteous about how right I was in order to get them to help me. But what was the goal? The goal was I needed this young man who worked at the tire store to understand I'd already given the investment in the tire, and I'd already given the investment into the insurance on the tire. So as soon as I felt that rage and righteous indignation come up in me, I'm right about this, therefore, and there came along with it came anger and upsetness, right? And I caught myself, and I looked at the young man's name tag. His name was Cody, and I changed my tone 100%. And I said, Cody, I spent a lot of money on tires on this car. I buy them here because of the insurance policy on the tires, and I really need your help. Oregon is a house, welcome. I really need your help. Can you help me find a way to get what is right to happen? And that change of attitude, he began to work with his manager and back and forth to the computer, and my standing there patiently sending love and knowing the right outcome was going to happen. He came back to me. It took about 20 minutes, and he came back to me. He says, we agree. We need to give you this certificate on this tire. And I said, thank you very much, and thank you for helping me out. So you see the difference between going with your ego and going with, we're on the same team. This young man and I are on the same team. We're interconnected and interrelated, and now we're doing business together. What if I approach him as if he's my friend and colleague, and that we're interconnected and interrelated and interdependent upon each other? What if I actually function that way? Well, what happens is when you change your mind and get out of ego and separation and join into oneness and being together and working together and moving in the right direction together, harmoniously, what happens if I make that choice? Time after time after time, we are asked in our world, which is filled with incredibly beautiful diversity of all kinds, to work together harmoniously. The Beatles wrote a song many, many years ago about a lovely English garden in the sun. And one time while doing a seminar in England, I spent a day seeing clients perfectly, and my wonderful host had set me up in a very lovely little room that was facing a beautiful English garden in the summer. And the thing about any garden is that you notice there are flowers and plants, and sometimes many diverse kinds of flowers and plants and colors, and they're not arguing with each other about who is better or who has more rights in the garden. They're being together as what they are, a diverse and marvelous, beautiful English garden, right? Well, that's what humanity is. Humanity is a beautiful, lovely, worldwide garden, and everybody belongs, and everyone has unalienable rights from which they cannot be separated. Among them, life, their right to the fullness of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if we don't honor that in every other soul, it means we're not really honoring it in ourselves. Because every other soul that's attracted into our experience by a cosmic law is there because they're vibrating at a similar level that we are. And indeed, we belong together. So one of the reasons I like Coffee with Casper. Casper, come on over and say hi, everybody, one more time. Come on over. Oh, I can't believe we're out of time. All right, so we're going to say goodbye. Come on, come on, come on. Oh, you big boy. Come on. That a boy. There he is. We're going to say goodbye for now. I can't believe our 20 minutes went by so fast. What I know is that everybody here gathered. Share the video with everybody you know on Facebook if it's helpful to them. By all means, if you have a question for me or a comment, let me know. I'll answer them. If you need people to know how to find me, just send them to newthought.com. They'll find the link to Coffee with Casper in the social media section. But the bottom line is we're all in this together. And the only way, and that's what this virus is revealing, this virus spread around the world in a matter of weeks, not just one country, not just one nation, all people, everywhere affected by it. It's the universe in a peculiar way reminding us that we're all together, that we're interrelated, interconnected, and we belong to each other. So my hope is that this week you practice honoring the divinity in everybody you meet, in everybody you see, in everybody you interact with, and appreciate them for what they're bringing into your life and how they make your life better just by being. Because God has ordained that we're all here together and we're all in this together. My friends, it is my honor and privilege to be with you today, as it is always. For I know that you are a light worker in the world. We are the ones who have been called at this time to bring forth the world, the principle of a world that works for everyone. Who you are is magnificent. The light you bring to the world is significant, and I honor you and I love you. And please join us next week for Coffee with Casper. We'll see you here. Bye for now.